went into that sphere. My understanding is it's just, and the issue is that white privilege makes people uncomfortable to talk about the societal privilege that they have.
Well, to me, what I say on campuses all the time is if you want to cite instances of racism that we can all find and fight together, that's something that I'm more than willing to stand next to you and fight, because that's obviously stuff that we should fight together. But when you just say that there
Ben
is
Shapiro once again exposes the left's twisted narrative on white privilege and race politics in this powerful exchange. Watch as Shapiro dismantles the argument, defends free speech, and calls out the hypocrisy of those who use identity politics to silence truth. This isn't about privilege, it's about control. Watch the full breakdown now and see why the left fears voices like his.
just say that there is a white privilege.
Mr. Shapiro, you talked about white privilege. And just this week, I had a conversation with Rachel Lazar, who's done some work, a Jewish American woman who's done some work on this area, as well as having extensive conversations with Dr. Greg Parks of Wake Forest University, who's also talked quite a bit about critical race theory. And it's my understanding that white privilege is not telling individuals that they cannot speak, but it is a term for societal privilege that individuals have as a benefit of their white skin. And I don't think that, and I think universities would be remiss to then say that because you're white, you're not allowed to say anything that's critical of white people. I didn't know that white privilege actually went into that sphere. My understanding is it's just, and the issue is that white privilege makes people uncomfortable to talk about the societal privilege that they have.
Well, to me, what I say on campuses all the time is if you want to cite instances of racism that we can all find and fight together, that's something that I'm more than willing to stand next to you and fight, because that's obviously stuff that we should fight together. But when you just say that there is a white privilege out there in the ether and that by dint of birth your skin color generates for you an advantage, what you're really saying to people is that your view is less valuable because you have not experienced what I've experienced. And that is an identity argument, that's a character argument, that's not a rational political argument that can actually be taken on in any way. It's more of a cudgel and a club than it is an attempt to open a discussion.
Well, I think it's a demonstrable evidence that through society's demographics that being white has societal privileges that being black does not. But
we can talk about how that manifests, because that's
I'm also interested in what you just said now, was that you would stand next to anyone who has this. So, Mr. Shapiro, my question to you is, for Ms. Dunston, the tying the noose around the campus and writing messages that target African-American young students, would you consider that hate speech, and then would you stand next to her and fight for her?
As I say, I would. This is the first I'm hearing about it, honestly. But
really,
yeah. But from hearing about it, maybe because it's local. I mean, I'm from LA. But in any case, I'm more than happy to stand alongside her and fight whatever group was responsible for this. Not only more than happy. I mean, you're talking about the alt-right. Again, I was the #1 target of anti-Semitic harassment from the alt-right last year. So I'm more than happy to do all that. And I think there's one more distinction that has to be made. When we talk about cases like Taylor's, they're horrific, and the administration is siding with Taylor. Okay, the administration is doing the right thing by Taylor, or trying to do the right thing by Taylor, as they should be. And I think that we need to make a distinction between cases where the administration is actively participating in the suppression of speech and cases in which the administration is trying to do the right thing in order to punish people for application of crime.
Welcome back to Illuminate, where we bring truth to light and cut through the political noise the left doesn't want you to hear. Before we get started, make sure you hit that subscribe button, smash that like, and turn on notifications, because here, we don't censor the truth. Now, this exchange between Ben Shapiro and a so-called progressive intellectual is exactly why we need more fearless voices standing up against the left's obsession with identity politics. Shapiro was calm, factual, and razor-sharp, and the person questioning him, completely out of their depth. The discussion started with the topic of white privilege. You know, that buzzword the left loves to use to divide Americans. The person questioning Shapiro claimed that white privilege is just about acknowledging societal advantages, nothing to do with silencing people. But let's be honest, that's not how it's used in practice. When people throw around white privilege, what they're really saying is, sit down. You don't get to have an opinion. It's a moral weapon, not a discussion point. Shapiro nailed it when he said that real racism should be fought together, as Americans united. But when the left insists that some people's opinions are less valid because of their skin color, that's not justice. That's discrimination, plain and simple. The entire premise of white privilege turns dialogue into guilt trips. It shuts down debate, and that's exactly what the radical left wants. Then came the emotional pivot. The questioner brought up a hate incident on a college campus involving a noose. A disgusting act, no doubt. But here's what's so telling. They try to trap Shapiro into picking sides. They wanted him to either downplay the act or betray his own principles. Instead, Shapiro did what few conservatives get credit for. He condemned it outright. He said he'd stand shoulder to shoulder with anyone facing hate, no matter their color. That's integrity. But the real brilliance was in his final point, and this is something the left never wants to hear. There's a difference between punishing actual crimes and suppressing speech. Shapiro pointed out that when administrators act to punish those committing hate crimes, that's justice. But when they silence people just for having unpopular opinions, that's tyranny. This moment exposed something deep about our cultural battle. The left talks about equality, but what they really want is conformity. They want to redefine morality through emotional manipulation and social pressure. They don't want conversation. They want submission. And if you disagree, they slap you with a label: racist, privileged, hateful. But here's what they don't get. Truth doesn't care about your feelings. And free speech doesn't bow to identity politics. What Ben Shapiro did in that room wasn't just an intellectual argument, it was a defense of American principles. The right to speak freely, the right to reason without fear, and the right to reject collective guilt. At the end of the day, this isn't about privilege. It's about power. The left uses concepts like white privilege to control how you